Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking an absolute masterclass in modern marketing from one of the biggest beverage companies on the planet. We're going to explore exactly how a massive, global brand stopped simply selling products and started creating lasting culture through Coke Studio.
Think about this idea for a second. People may forget an advertisement. They rarely forget how a song made them feel. For decades, the marketing playbook was purely transactional. You'd capture someone's attention, tell them what your product does, and try to persuade them to buy it. But this quote highlights a much deeper truth that our source material points out right out of the gate. We are emotional creatures.
And that emotional reality brings us to a huge kind of existential dilemma. How does a brand remain relevant when people simply no longer want to be marketed to? I mean, let's be real. We live in an era where we all actively skip advertisements, we block promotional content, and we scroll past branded messages in the blink of an eye. In fact, modern audiences skip the vast majority of pre-roll video ads the very millisecond that skip ad button appears. The traditional playbook is fundamentally breaking down because audiences are aggressively pushing back against constant interruption.
So let's dive into Section 1, the attention economy crisis. Here's the deal. Attention is today's most expensive currency. Simply communicating a product's value, that's just no longer enough to win. In our hyper-connected digital world, every single app, platform, and creator is fighting tooth and nail for the exact same thing, a few seconds of your time. Because consumers are so incredibly adept at filtering out branded noise, earning their focus is harder and far more costly than it's ever been. You can't just buy attention anymore. You have to earn it. Which leads us to Section 2, becoming the entertainment. Coca-Cola actually found a brilliant answer to this attention crisis. They did it by giving consumers an experience they genuinely, actively wanted. Let's walk through the timeline here. Back in 2008, Coke Studio Pakistan launched, and it brilliantly blended traditional Sufi music with modern rock elements. Now, they weren't trying to enter the music industry, right? They were entering the business of emotions. Years later, this exact philosophy evolved in India through Coke Studio Bharat. Instead of rolling out yet another celebrity-driven ad campaign, they chose to celebrate India's immense cultural diversity. They incorporated regional languages like Tamil, Gujarati, and Bengali right alongside traditional instruments and independent musicians. And today, the result is far more than just a collection of songs. It's a full-blown cultural movement. The paradigm shift here is just night and day. The old model of advertising relies entirely on interruption. You know how it is. You're watching a show, enjoying yourself, and a brand interrupts that entertainment to shout a promotional message at you. Well, Coke Studio completely reversed this. They became the entertainment. Instead of pushing a product into people's lives when they were busy trying to do something else, Coca-Cola created an experience that people voluntarily consumed. Brands aren't just competing for market share anymore, they're competing for relevance and genuine emotional connection. All right, moving on to Section 3, the psychology of connection. So, why does this work so incredibly well? As outlined in our source material, Coke Studio succeeds because it deeply connects with three powerful emotional triggers. Those are nostalgia, identity, and emotion before logic. Let's peel back the layers on each of these to see exactly how they build such intense brand relevance.
First up is nostalgia. Research in consumer psychology consistently shows that nostalgic experiences absolutely supercharge our emotional attachment to things. Think about it. When forgotten folk melodies or regional sounds are presented in a high-quality modern format, audiences instantly reconnect with their childhood memories and family traditions. The music feels deeply personal. And by extension, the brand facilitating that music starts to feel personal too. This dramatically improves long-term brand recall.
Then we have the second trigger, identity. Consumers are increasingly supporting brands that actually acknowledge and respect who they are. Instead of promoting a single, sanitized, uniform culture across a vast and diverse landscape like India, Coke Studio celebrates that diversity. Every single time they launch a regional collaboration, they are fundamentally telling the audience, hey, your culture matters. That validating, powerful message builds a level of unparalleled brand authenticity that money simply cannot buy. And the third psychological trigger is the concept of emotion before logic. Look, we all love to think of ourselves as highly rational creatures who justify our purchases with pure logic. But actually, the truth is, most decisions are emotional first. We remember brands because of how they make us feel. And the ultimate irony here, The absolute best way to sell a soda might just be to stop talking about the soda altogether. Notice how Coke Studio literally never asks viewers to buy a drink. There's no hard sell, none. Instead, it quietly creates overwhelmingly positive emotional experiences that continuously strengthen brand perception in the background year after year.
Let's look at Section 4, Building Long-Term Brand Equity.
So, how do all these warm, fuzzy feelings actually translate into measurable business strategy? It really comes down to the stark discrepancy in lifespan between these two models. A traditional TV ad completely disappears the second the campaign budget runs dry. It's a short-lived promotional asset driven entirely by direct product selling. But Coke Studio content? That generates value for years. Every single song and artist collaboration becomes a long-term digital asset. It drives value through constant streams, YouTube views, social media shares, playlist additions, and ongoing conversations. Every single one of those interactions strengthens the brand long after the music was originally recorded.
And make no mistake, this isn't just some accidental magic. Behind this creative success is a rigorous three-step data pipeline. First, Coca-Cola analyzes digital consumption habits and regional preferences, knowing full well that younger audiences spend far more time with digital content than traditional TV. Second, analytics identify what these target audiences truly value, which in this case is authentic, highly shareable music. And finally, step 3. They use creativity to deliver that exact value in a meaningful way. It's basically data-informed creativity perfectly aligned with modern online behavior.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, the strategic takeaway.
We've covered the crisis, the psychology, and the data, and it all boils down to this incredibly powerful mantra: don't shout the loudest, contribute value. In a mature market, sophisticated brands recognize that aggressive, high-volume broadcasting is subject to severe diminishing returns. Instead of trying to awkwardly force their way into the consumer's line of sight, they build value-add marketing ecosystems. Consumers reward brands that offer real value. For Coke Studio, that ecosystem is built on entertainment, but honestly, it could just as easily be built on education, innovation, or community utility. The underlying principle remains exactly the same.
And this brings us to the ultimate payoff of this entire explainer. People don't build relationships with products. They build relationships with emotions, memories, and experiences. The absolute greatest achievement of Coke Studio isn't the millions of viral views or the massive social media engagement. Its greatest achievement is proving that a massive global corporation can celebrate local culture without making their physical product the hero of the story. Instead of shouting, "Look at our beverage," they simply said, "Let's celebrate your culture."
Which leaves us with one final, provocative question for you to consider. How will your brand create experiences worth remembering? In a marketplace that is absolutely flooded with noise, people don't need another brand begging for their attention. They need brands that understand them deeply enough to become a part of their own stories. I really hope this deep dive into Coke Studio has inspired you to rethink how you connect with your own audience. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.